Welcome to Resolve It in 30, where you bring the questions and our experts bring the answers. Welcome again. Thank you for joining this session hosted by the Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And let's get things going. Let me introduce to you now your host for Resolve It in 30, Ms. Kieran O'Connell, who is the Director of Memberships here at the Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Kieran, take it away.
Thank you, Javier. Good afternoon, everybody. And everybody, hope you're staying safe and staying well. And today, if you're in the Northeast, you're staying dry. It is my pleasure today to work with Shael Tasher, who is also your co-hostess for this session, with Tapia from the SBA. We are thrilled to have the SBA with us today to talk about a number of I call them loan products that they have, but most specifically today, we're going to be talking about the 8A program. And George has very specific experience with this program. So for the next 30, 40 minutes, we're going to be able to really have the information right from the horse's mouth, so to speak, relative to the importance of this program, the ins and outs of this program, and how to really access this program. I will remind you all to make sure that you are muting your microphones, so to speak, in the time that we have. Should you have a question, please put in that, because Jael will be monitoring the chats as we go along. We'll also do a Q&A at the end for anybody that has any additional questions. And as always, we are available to you almost 24/7, 365 here at the Chamber, so everybody knows how to get me, and that will be at a slide at the end as well. So without further ado, let me introduce from the SBA, George Tapia. George, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and let's get right into the 8A program.
Okay, thank you very much. As indicated, my formal title, I am the Business Opportunity Specialist for the Eastern Pennsylvania District. I am a graduate of the 8A program. I ran my own business for approximately 29 years. I was a general contractor, self-performing in electrical, very heavy in IT, sustainable energy, and mechanical. So therefore, I pretty much was self-performing anywhere from 40 to 50% of the entire contract. Next slide, please. Next slide, there you go. I think the biggest question you need to ask yourself is, why should I do business with the federal government? And this is a big question. And a lot of us don't really think about it when we're in time of need. And COVID-19 has presented some interesting situations for we, the small business community out there. COVID-19 did not give us notice. It just came in and just devastated our businesses and our economy. And these are the things that, my lifetime, I've gone through about 3 major financial downfalls. And if you're not prepared for a financial downfall, all of your life's work, your time, your treasury, things of this caliber, this is all questionable conditions. Am I going to survive this? So what I did when I ran my small business, and I learned the hard way too, this is what I'm trying to pass to you today. You got to keep balance in your life between commercial and federal and state opportunities to give you the ability to shift. And when I'm shifting cash flow is what I'm doing. The ability to strategically recover from something like this. And as we go through this, and I look at the devastation that we're all living through, there's about 120, 150-day window that we've got to survive, come up with a reconstruction plan and go forward. I've always have been a firm believer in balance. And this is one of the reasons why I asked the question, should I do business with the federal government? Doing business with the federal government is not easy. I'm going to say it again. Doing business with the federal government is not easy. If you've never done business with the federal government, you have to learn a new language. There are so many rules and regulations. It is very difficult, and no one person knows them all. So there's an educational process of why I am going to have some issues in doing business with the federal government. But we're going to look at two very important things initially: opportunity and cash flow. Next slide. All right, now I've been trying to gauge my performance from February 12th, 2016 to July 10th, which is today. And I have written and accepted $2.2 billion of offer letters for the disadvantaged world. One more time, I've accepted. When the federal government wants to hire you, they send me a letter. I accept it on your behalf because you're an 8A contractor, and that's my specialty. And then I verify that you have the ability to perform best value for the taxpayer. $2.2 billion, and that's within a 3-hour drive of Center City, Philadelphia. Number one, we've established the fact there's opportunity. Then if you look at the sub-programs, the women only, there's $253 million for Eastern Pennsylvania and $81 million for Hub Zone. There's tons of opportunity here. Your biggest challenge is to find it. Together, we work as a team to try to find these opportunities for you. Next slide. Now, here is the biggie. Cash flow. If we don't have cash flow as a small business, we don't survive. We give all of our net margins if we don't have cash flow because we use credit lines, and credit lines cost money. The banks make the money. You don't make the money. So the idea behind doing business with the federal government, because you're in the disadvantaged world, you get prompt payment. And prompt payment upon approval of invoice in this particular condition is 14 days direct deposit into your bank account. Nobody pays you like that. Nobody. Now, the other beauty of the situation of doing business with the federal government, you are doing business with an entity that can legally print money. Nobody else can do that. Now, it's not all rosy here, because in doing business with the federal government can terminate your contract at any given time for convenience or considerations. But these are things that are positives and negatives. And I want you to be aware of these, because it's going to take time and treasury to get involved into these programs. Now, I'm going to give you a summary of conditions. When I use the term small business, anything under small business would be inclusive for 8A, women-owned, Hub Zone, Native American, service disabled. All of those categories exist under small business. All of the specialty diversified subcategories, those all have their special programs. But here is the critical issue for today's session. There is only one contractual vehicle that is authorized by congressional law for sole source non-competitive condition, and that is the 8A contract. Everything else is awarded by subjective interpretation of the contracting officer and requires what we call a J&A report to be signed. Now, for those who have done business with the federal government in the past, contracting officers do not want to sign J&A reports. Why don't they want to do that? Because every document they sign over the master contract, they're in the position of being sued or included in the lawsuit. When the contracting officer signs the master contract, usually at 1442, she or he is protected by law, congressional law. Every other one other than 8A is susceptible to that. Next slide. Now, a little bit about myself, okay? I am your business opportunity specialist. I am also a certified CFCM, Certified Federal Contract Management and I have that certificate. If you're going to be doing business in the federal arena, you've got to have that certificate. If you're going to succeed in doing business with the federal government, you've got to have a CFCM. Why do I have to have it? Because it prepares you to be in parity with the contracting officer and the procurement team. If you don't understand what their job is all about, and you don't understand the rules of doing business with the federal government, you will never win the game. It's like anything else. Education is critical. Education is the key to success. And in this arena, we're going to already support the fact that there's opportunity for you. 2.2 billion I've processed. Can I get cash flow? We've determined we can get cash flow. Now I have to educate myself to get in that position to control and manage my growth in a step condition and to verify that I can protect myself. That's what the CFCM does. Now, I have a Bachelor of Science in Engineering. I'm an electrical engineer, ran my own small business for, as I indicated, 29 years. And if you'll click it again, I'm a graduate of the 8A program out in California. That's where I'm from, Fresno, California. And my area of influence was California, Arizona, Nevada, and Hawaii. Let me tell you, sales and marketing out west cost big dollars, cost you a lot of time because it's so huge of an area. There are 4 major states in doing business with the federal government: California, Texas, Virginia, and Maryland. You've got 2 here within a 3-hour drive. That is beautiful for sales or marketing. At the end of my 20 years, I decided, you know what, I think I'm going to go someplace else. And I went from small business to the Fortune 10. I ended up at Siemens. Siemens hired me because they needed someone to understand how can Siemens do business with the disadvantaged world. That was my task. I was the author of their first successful mentor-protege agreement with the Department of Energy. So it's a little bit about my background. So I want you to understand where I'm coming from when I make this presentation. Next slide. Okay, the 8A program is a business development program. This program was designed for those who are socially and economically disadvantaged, who own and control their businesses. And we're going to look in deeper depth about these conditions to be eligible for the program. Now, again, I want to remind you, this is the only vehicle by law you can have a sole source non-competitive contract. What does that mean? That means that you and the government are going to identify an opportunity for you, and you're not going to compete with anybody except yourself. Now, that's an interesting statement to make. You're going to compete against yourself. Why do I say that? Because your negotiation skill set is the key to margins when you negotiate. You've got to have good quality negotiation skills so that your net margin is what you're asking for and you're going to be given that. Hit the next button, please. There you go. Why did the government put this entire program together? Back in 1977, the government wanted to promote some sort of a mechanism to have competitive viability. I want more businesses to offer products and services and engineering and whatever to the federal government. So the government looked at the disadvantaged world and said, hey, you know, there is a vast market out there that has basically untapped, and this is what created the 8A program. Next. Why do they do these things? To clarify and expand the procurement cycle for the federal government. And these are things that the 8A program answers a lot of logistical problems. It is the only program that I can legally award a contract in 1 day. This is why a lot of 8A contractors, FEMA gets a hold of them under natural disasters. In time of war, many 8A contractors are supplying products and services to our war fighters. 8A is a legal vehicle that, if possible, the government can award and will award a contract in 1 day. The shortest amount of time that I was ever awarded a contract was approximately 10 calendar days. I was at Edwards Air Force Base. They gave me an opportunity on 2 paragraphs, asked me to go back, create a scope of work, a cost estimate, and come back and negotiate for a contract. This is a September condition. I call August and September the Christmas months. Government has to spend a tremendous amount of money there during those cycles. This is where I used to make approximately 30% of my revenue in 60 days. Next slide. Okay, the program is designed in 2 segments. The development stage, which is the first 4 years. A very interesting thing about the development stage is it says you can have unlimited sole source contracts during the first 4 years. This is going to be critical because if we look at the next stage, that's not going to be the condition anymore. But in the first 4 years, if you are a very savvy marketer, all of the cash you need to develop your business, you control that cash in the first 4 years. This would keep you out of the banks, keep you away from credit lines. Because once you establish the pipeline, and you prime the pump and contractual vehicles are producing cash, you no longer go to the bank. And it's very interesting because the bank was always telling me, George Tapia, we don't want you to spend your money. We want the money to sit in your account for 45 days. Well, I was obviously prepaying for a lot of my materials so that I would get my discounts. So I tell the bank, you give me the 2% that I'm going to lose by doing that, and I gladly will do that. Of course, they won't do that. My bonding company loved it because I was cash rich. The 8A program, if utilized correctly, is a cash rich entity. In other words, once you get the cash rolling, you don't need the financial support of a bank. Your second phase, which is the transition stage, I'm going to start you on the process to graduate. And those are the percentages. Year 5, we'll pick on year 5. 15% of your gross sales for year 5 will be anything except sole source 8A and competitive 8A. Next slide. My job as a business opportunity specialist is to analyze your position in eligibility each year to ensure that you are still able to be a participant of the 8A program. What do we have to do to come into the program? General conditions. Go ahead and hit enter. Okay, good. All right. So the generalization is you have to be socially disadvantaged. We're going to define that. Economically disadvantaged, we're going to define that. You must own 51% and be socially and economically disadvantaged. It can be an individual or it can be individuals. Control and management, critical here, because in your application, you're going to convince the auditor that you control and manage your entity. This is going to be probably one of the most scrutinized conditions in entering this program, because you're going to get such opportunity here. The application process goes deep into your financial, social, and economic conditions. Go ahead, next. Size, obviously you got to be a small business to come into the program. Next. Socially disadvantaged, next. Who are these people that are socially disadvantaged? What is it? Now, this is the best part I like about doing business with the federal government. I like the generalized terms that the federal government uses in the description of certain conditions, because You're going to learn very quickly that if you read the words and you don't read the intent of a given paragraph or sentence, it actually helps you in disputes. And this is the best part that I like doing business with the federal government. Socially disadvantaged, those who are subjected to racial or ethnic prejudice or cultural bias, next, based on a, not because of their identity or a member of a group, and without regard to individual qualities. That is a lot of generalization there. Who makes up this entire group? Next. Next. These are the presumed groups. These groups, the government has dictated, they're presumed to be socially disadvantaged. So that means that half of the formula, you've already accomplished that. You must be a U.S. citizen to enter this program. In every case, U.S. citizens must be a condition for not only the 8A program, but all of the disadvantaged programs that are offered out there. What are we going to do and how we're going to examine this condition is very interesting, because I'm going to pick on the Hispanics today. And by the way, I'm one of those, okay? Now, the Hispanics are very interesting because if you'll notice, the Hispanics in the presumed group probably includes the Spanish and the Portuguese, which are Europeans. So as we look at our backgrounds and we examine where we come from, and have helped numerous people in applying for the 8A program, I have found that a lot of people, especially Europeans, who do not have a DNA test and do not know their history, many of them from the Mediterranean area are Iberian. Iberians are Spanish and Portuguese. They qualify for the program. Next. If you're not in this presumed group, there's something called preponderance of evidence. And preponderance of evidence is going to take some time to dive into, but basically, preponderance of evidence, I want to apply for the program, but I'm not in the presumed group, but I may be from ethnic origin, gender, physical handicap, long-term isolation. There's certain things. Then if you think you qualify for preponderance of evidence, call me. Let's talk about it. Because I've gotten a lot of people into the program in preponderance of evidence. Next. All of this must have been suffered. All of this socially disadvantaged conditions must have been suffered in the United States, because I get a lot of immigrants who apply for my program, and especially, from Africa right now. They apply for the program, but they have not suffered these conditions in the United States yet. You don't qualify. So what I tell them is, come back and see me, get your business going, obviously, come back and see me in 2 years, and then let's attack this problem again. These conditions must be chronic and substantial. Next. All right, here's the big one right here. This one sentence: discrimination must have a negative impact on business development. That almost tells you a roadmap of how to attack or write up preponderance of evidence. Next. Okay, let's talk money now. Money is black and white stuff, okay? And if we are economically disadvantaged, that we have had the inability to compete in a free enterprise system because due to diminished capital or credit. We've all grown up through that. As we grow up as young adults, we find ourselves in this position. As we mature financially also, things of this nature. Next. Basic eligibility conditions. If you exclude the equity in your residence, the equity in your business, and unavailable retirement accounts, exclude all of those assets from your 413 or your personal financial statement, and your net worth must be $250,000 or less. That's still a significant amount of money when you exclude all of those conditions. So there's a lot of leeway here, and there's certain things that are coming. These numbers, from what I'm told, will be increasing here in the near future. So that's an interesting situation. Next, please. Supplemental definitions on personal income. You can't draw more than $250,000 a year over a 3-year average, and we'll call it salary. Total assets cannot exceed $4 million. Still a lot of money, and you can still apply for the 8A program. Most of the time, we don't have issues with this. Next. Okay, personal retirement accounts or unavailable retirement accounts is any account that has significant penalties for early withdrawal. Now, SBA knows that the IRS allows you to access some of this money at age 59 and a half without significant penalties. When you get to that bracket, you can no longer deduct those accounts. So a lot of my individuals applying for this program who have experience in life are facing these conditions. There are certain conditions they can work out with their family and their CPA in order to balance the formula, we'll call it. And everybody will be different, and there'll be different solutions for all of us because we have different conditions. Next, please. Now, this is a big one because a lot of times I witness this where an owner of a specific entity is drawing money personally to pay taxes for their own company. That's not a negative. What you're going to end up doing is you're going to have the ability to write me a letter, show me the canceled checks to the IRS, and I don't penalize you for this. So that's communication between you, what we call the 8A participant, and myself. I am your business opportunity specialist. I'm going to encourage you that if you're assigned to me when you come into this program, you and I will probably communicate very heavily in the first 6 months of your involvement in this program. And these are things we're going to work out together. Next. Okay, we've covered a lot real quick, but now if you have questions, answer them. Because in the next slide after this, go ahead and hit it. These are my training classes. What we try to accomplish today is to give you an overview of a program that needs about 6 hours of training to understand it, to go through the application process. And these are the dates that I teach this class. I teach 2 classes, a 3-hour class on how to sell to the federal government and a 3-hour class in 8A. Now we're going to create 2 more classes, one for women owned because that program has changed dramatically, and one for Hub Zone. And we're going to decide how we're going to approach those 2 classes. But Jennifer Tilden, who is my lead, we have decided that we're going to initiate and create new classes and bring the taxpayer up to date for best value on how to apply for these programs. Now, I think one of the best things about Jennifer and I, Jennifer is a level 3 contracting officer. And a level 3 contracting officer, she was a warranted officer for the Army Corps of Engineers and has a tremendous amount of experience in contracting. For myself, I came from the opposite side of the table. I was a contractor. I was an 8A contractor. So now that I'm on this side of the fence, I get the opportunity to understand what I say is the rest of the story in doing business with the federal government. So the more that I'm exposed to questions and concerns and all the different scenarios that you bring to me as a business opportunity specialist, the more I am able to, I think, create a more dynamic training session for you to help you navigate not only getting into the program, but getting best value out of the program. Because I always make the statement from my point of view, for every dollar that you do not earn in the 8A program, you lose 2. And you're going to understand this when you get into this program and you realize how much money is available through this program. It is a life-changing event. If you're serious about being successful in the 8A program, if you're serious about doing business with the federal government, you're going to educate yourself, and educate yourself. You're going to create relationships from A to Z. The key to marketing, the key for sales and marketing to the federal government are personal relationships at best value for the taxpayer. The procurement team, they are looking for what? They're looking for a contractor to give them best value for the taxpayer, be on time, if not complete your obligations early, and not be an administrative overhead to the procurement team. Now, it's like anything else, the federal government, we don't have enough employees to service everything the way it is. And I'll give you an example. Right now, we have approximately 67 8As. Processing 67 8As is a significant challenge. I'm going to stop here, open it up for questions, and we'll go from there.
George, thank you very much. Certainly a tremendous amount of information in a very short period of time, but really tremendously valuable. Couple of questions that I have that I'll ask in lieu of having a very big audience because of the storm today. You know, do you have to be a U.S. citizen?
Yes. Okay.
Are there any other restrictions, you know, that would, you know, that you could tell us about or share with us that may potentially impact our community other than the citizenship piece?
Yeah, I think, you know, citizenship obviously is it, but I'm going to tell you the easiest application to prepare for. One that you're going to feel very comfortable that you're going to get into the program. You own 100% of your stock. Your spouse is not a corporate officer. Your spouse can be an employee, and that you manage and control the daily conditions 100%, and there's only one signature on the bank card, yours. That tells the auditor or the reader of your application, you have total control. Because you must understand that we get so many applications that are inundated with a lot of questionable conditions. We'll leave it at that, okay? And it takes further evaluation to ensure that the applicant is indeed controlling the business.
Let me ask you, George, you know, within the context of the application, and certainly there are, you know, clearly steps that have to be gone through, and, you know, there's some training that has to happen as well. But, you know, from start to finish, if somebody was really interested in doing this, what is the time that they could, you know, assume to be able to allot to this? How much time?
I get this question a lot. All right, so the quote unquote time is this. Assuming that your application is filled out correctly, this is the major condition. The following time sequence exists. Your application is uploaded and turned in. The SBA has 15 days to pre-screen the application for quote unquote accuracy, okay? If they find it complete, they will pass it to an auditor. An auditor then has 90 calendar days to say yes or no. That's a maximum of 90 calendar days. If the auditor has questions during that time sequence, the 90 days stops at that window or that day count and gives you 15 days to respond back to that person. So that's the wild card. How many times do you and the auditor bounce back and forth? Now, in my class, I have prepared a 12-page check sheet that tells you exactly what is needed before you upload your documents. And this is the part that, honestly, I'm having some difficulty because a lot of people are reading the sentence but not reading the words. And we're missing holes there.
So it sounds very much like the EIDL program or the PPP program, right?
Yes.
So there's always something missing that's going to bounce back.
There it is.
But
yes.
One of the things, and we've got about 2 minutes left, George. And again, this has been really, really wonderful. When we talk about the single source opportunities that are out there, one of the things that I'm wondering with this, one of the first slides that you showed was the 2.2 billion that you personally have been, involved with over the, X amount of time. And the wonderful thing about that cash flow and that 15-day turnaround basically from the government in terms of payment is off the charts in terms of positive for small businesses across the board, especially in our community. But can you identify some of the single source, the most obvious single source opportunities that you've run into in your experience with this in the minute and a half that we have left?
Yeah, in our area, construction and services, I can award a maximum of $4 million with no competition. In manufacturing, I can go up to 7 million with no competition. The engineering world and professional services, very similar numbers in that. So I get a lot of IT, I get a lot of engineering, I get a lot of construction, a lot of janitorial. I'm doing quite a bit with that. Cybersecurity, as you know, is very heavy right now. I've got 2 very positive, very strong cybersecurity firms in Eastern Pennsylvania. We're also working with Alaska Native corporations. I've got a brand new one who is now hiring a lot of my A-days. I'm very excited about that.
Well, George, I really want to take a moment before I hand it back over to Javier. And thank you immensely for the time and consideration. Certainly thank you for the really diligence of this wonderful, wonderful slide presentation that you've given us. Your contact information is on there, as well as the contact information from the chamber. If somebody in the last 10 seconds that we've got, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what is the best way? If somebody wants to do this program, what's the best way in 10 seconds to do it?
Send me an email.
Okay, I love that.
All right.
I love that. That's great. All right, George, stay on the line. Javier, let me turn it back over to you. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thanks, Karen, and thanks, George. Thank you for presenting Resolve It in 30, hosted by the Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Remember, this session has been recorded and it will be shared across our social media platforms. So you could follow us in LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can review this wonderful and informative program. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and the weekend as well. Thank you.